Hi everyone, this is Alan Rosinski of Metro Manhattan Office Space. Good afternoon. Let's say you have a retail location. It's got some kind of a repair service, like a computer repair business. And your company's doing well, and you want to make a move. You're on a side street. You want to be in a more central, more visible location. And you start looking for a new space because your lease is expired. And you go to First Avenue. You find a space on First Avenue. It's a beautiful store, a lot of frontage, good visibility, a lot of foot traffic. And you have a broker, introduces you to the landlord. Landlord's asking 18 grand, and you know the space has been vacant for a while. And you offer the landlord $9,000. And the landlord literally laughs at you. He comes back to you and he says, look, prime location. Give me 14 grand, maybe the first year, but I got to get you up to the $18,000 or $19,000 because I have a national fast food restaurant interested in the space. Popeyes wants my space. So if you're not willing to pay 14 grand the first year and step that up to $18,000 within a couple of years, I'm going to lease my space to Popeyes. Landlord seems maybe a little bit arrogant, and you're sure the landlord is bluffing, so you just stop. You don't want to do business with him, but you love the space. And you look around, you go through a couple of brokers, and you lease a space on a side street in Chelsea. Maybe you're paying $11,000 or $12,000 a month, but you're kind of nostalgic for that avenue location because that foot traffic would have done your business good. It would have been very, very beneficial. Maybe 2 years later, early 21, you go by that original space where you started your search for a new store location. What do you see? Popeyes is there. So the landlord wasn't bluffing, and the landlord made a deal with Popeyes. So what can you learn from this? While landlords can bluff, you can't believe anybody, and there's a lot of money at stake, and people will say anything, doesn't necessarily mean that they're always bluffing. Really the question is, why did the landlord make a deal with Popeyes and not with a certain hardware repair business by the name of the Rossman Repair Group, run by the YouTube celebrity Louis Rossman, who I've represented, and I wish he'd gotten the space, though I would have never had the opportunity to meet with him, and this channel would not be in business. Why did that occur? Why did Louis lose a space? First of all, landlords aren't always looking solely at the rental number. They're looking at a lot of different factors. They don't want empty spaces. They don't want defaults. They're going to avoid any chance of an empty. So who do you think they're going to rent? You think they're going to prefer a Chase Bank over a Popeyes? Sure, they'd go with Chase. Do you think they'd prefer a national fast food restaurant chain over a sole proprietor? You bet. Less risky. Let's say, as strong as a business is, if it's run by an individual, there's a risk there. What if the individual changes his career, or something goes wrong, or he wants to leave New York City because of a pandemic? It's less likely with a national chain. Also, something like a fast food restaurant is going to be around forever. That industry isn't changing. Something like a computer repair business, who knows? The industry could change. The laws could change. Apple could drop their prices. But fast food is going to be around for a very, very long time. Now, in fact, what's happening is Popeyes is on a roll. Not only did they acquire that First Avenue location, they have acquired 5,000 square feet at 14 East 23rd Street. This is exactly the sort of business that would be doing well potentially in a pandemic, because people look at restaurants now and it looks like restaurants are a dying business because of no indoor dining, but that's exactly the point. Half of them to 3/4 of them are going to be out of business in the next 6 months or so. So when things reopen towards the end of the year, the remaining restaurants are going to do well. And something like a budget fast food restaurant like Popeyes may do extremely well. Also, getting back to the question, why did the landlord make a deal with Popeyes and not the Rossman Repair Group? Popeyes at 14 East 23rd Street, according to their broker of ISA Realty, signed a 20-year lease term. So let's say the Rossman Repair Group would have signed a 5 or 7 year lease. If you own a building, aren't you more secure signing a 20-year lease with a national chain which may invest $400,000 or $500,000 into the build-out of a restaurant? If they're putting that kind of money into fixtures, a kitchen, and improvements of a space, it just means they're all the more likely to stay until the end of their lease term. It's a safer bet. We also don't know what kind of a lease was structured with Popeyes. In this Commercial Observer article, they state that the asking rent was $200 a square foot, but maybe there was some kind of a percentage lease which was negotiated. We don't know the incentives. We don't know if there was free rent. Maybe they dropped the rent very significantly and there was no free rent. What we do know is that the lease had pandemic protection language, according to Popeyes broker. We don't know, was it a conventional lease? Was it an incentive lease? How much free rent? But we do know that it was a national tenant, and a national tenant will always have the edge. If you were a tenant looking for space, be a little bit humble, be a little bit pragmatic. A landlord isn't always bluffing. And if you're looking at a very, very desirable space, understand that you're going to have bigger fish, stronger companies also looking at these spaces, and that landlords are often very, very well capitalized, and that they can hold out a year, 2 years, or 3 years for the right tenant. And also remember that landlords are very cautious, almost paranoid about the risk of default. What they're looking for is secure, long-term tenants who are going to pay their rent, not damage the space, low maintenance tenants. And national chains, larger companies are more in that category, but you as a small tenant can also acquire an extremely desirable space. If you package your tenancy to a landlord, you have to pitch your tenancy the right way to a landlord, in kind of a humble way, in a way that addresses a landlord's minimal concerns in terms of the use of the space, the economics, your risk as a tenant, and then you can be successful acquiring the space. If you found this content interesting or helpful, I'd be happy if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can always find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Metro Manhattan. Until the next time.